Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Parkland Community College Theater for That's What She Said, presented by Sterling Wealth Management. Please take a moment to silence your phones, get in the zone, and prepare for some amazing stories. Now let's welcome to the stage the National Director of the She Said Project, Miss Jenette Jurczyk.
Good evening, and thank you so much for being here. It is my absolute honor to welcome you to the 11th annual That's What She Said Champaign-Urbana. And we're so happy to be here once again on stage at the Parkland College Theater. They have been tremendous to work with, and we're so grateful. In just a few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to 9 spectacular women who've spent the last few months doing a deep dive into their stories, into their lives, to find a little nugget that they're going to share with you tonight. And I'm so excited for all of you because you're going to get a special glimpse into the story of their life. You ever think about that phrase, story of my life? I remember I've used the phrase, the story of my life, but I think I've only ever used it in a negative way. Like when something goes wrong, it's usually accompanied by a groan and an eye roll. Like you're running late for work and you get every red light. What do you do? Oh, story of my life, right? Or you're getting ready to give a really important presentation. You spill coffee right on your blouse. Happens to me all the time. Story of my life. But I started thinking about what that phrase was doing. The more energy I poured into these negative moments that were happening, I was giving them permission to become the story of my life. And I wondered, what would happen if I turned that around? Have you ever been on time to work and gotten all the green lights and celebrated? Have you ever given yourself a high five in the car? Woohoo! On time, story of my life. Probably not, because we don't pay attention when things are going according to plan. So I started doing just that. So when I walk into a Starbucks and they mess up the order before me and they offer me a free Frappuccino, woohoo, thank you, story of my life. Because I want moments like that to become the story of my life. Like right here, right now, spending this time with all of you, I am in awe that I get to say this is the story of my life. So welcome. Welcome to my story. You're all part of it. And when you hear these stories that these women are about to share, I know that you will be moved and impacted, and you might even feel a shift in the story of your life, because that's how stories work. And so let's turn on our minds to be open and curious, and let's make this world a positive place. You have control over the story of your life just by choosing to celebrate. So let's celebrate and welcome to the stage your 2026 That's What She Said speakers.
I have always needed to know all the things. For as long as I can remember, I have suffered from the fear of missing out. Even when I was lying in my crib as a toddler, my parents tell me that if I heard anyone talking, my head would be peeking out, trying to catch the conversation. I called it curiosity. My mom called it being nosy. Nosy Rosie was what she called me. And I own it. I am that person who needs to know. I hate surprises, not even the good kind. Christmas morning, it didn't take me long to figure out where all the presents really came from. Yes, I was that kid who would go looking for where the gifts were hidden in the house, not caring that it would ruin my surprise. When our class list got posted every school year, I would make my mom drive me up to the school first thing so I could see who my teacher was and who was going to be in my class. On our way out to dinner, I'm already on my phone looking up the menu in advance to pick out what I'm going to eat. And I'm also the person who leaves the lab after some blood work, and as I'm walking out to my car, I'm hitting refresh, 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 because I need to see what those results are going to be on my medical app. So it made complete and total sense that I went into the field of journalism. I found a place where being nosy was actually a good thing, and my need to find out everything and anything would be seen as a talent. I started my career right out of college as a TV news reporter, getting the chance to ask all the questions and learn all the facts, and I loved it. The anticipation of attending a press conference to be the first to learn about something new and then rush to get that information ready to go live in the newscast that night, it was thrilling. I spent 6 years out in the field going after the scoop. It was pure heaven for little Miss Nosy Rosie. And today I can proudly say that I lead the WCIA news team as the station's first female news director. However, that fear of missing out, well, it's not always served me well in my personal life. For example, when we found out we were expecting our first child in 2019, for some strange reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to throw a gender reveal party. You know, you agree to not find out the gender of your baby until it's revealed to you in real time in front of all your friends and family in some super flashy presentation. So we go for our sonogram, where the gender is supposed to be sealed in an envelope only to be given to the person coordinating the surprise reveal. But it didn't go according to plan, for as nosy and impatient as I tend to be, I was shocked to find out while I was in the restroom, my darling, sweet, loving, supportive husband had asked the technician and found out for himself. So before we even made it to the parking lot, I was dying inside that now he knew more information about this baby growing inside me than I did. And needless to say, I wouldn't let up until he told me to. Okay, so now we both know the gender of our baby, and we've got this huge reveal party coming up in just a few days. What are we supposed to do now? So I have to give the performance of my life and act completely surprised when I do the honors of hitting a golf ball to find blue paint spraying everywhere in our front yard. I played my part, of course, and I gushed about how excited we were to learn that we were having a boy, to keep up the illusion for everyone there. And it was a fun party, but it was also a reality check for me, because we could not wait to find out. We dampened our joy just a little, and was it worth it? While I just wanted a healthy baby, and I didn't care if it were a boy or a girl, I am a little embarrassed to admit the first thought that went through my head was, my husband always gets what he wants. I knew he wanted a boy, and I was happy for him, truly. No, I really mean this. I'm so glad that he's happy, and we ended up with a perfect little boy. That's okay. We planned on having our babies back to back, so we can go and still have a girl or another boy, just a healthy baby sibling for our darling son. Well, life, it's got a funny way of throwing some curveballs in the mix, and that's not exactly what happened. For the past 4 years, I've battled a blood disorder that really threw a wrench in that plan, and the not knowing what the future held was really hard for this pre-planner. But I decided it wasn't up to me. This was up to God. Becoming a mom was a real game changer. I was shocked that I could no longer control or plan for everything. The timing couldn't have been better as we went into the COVID shutdown. I was stuck at home for a year, not only raising an infant, but running a news department from my dining room table. And let me tell you, it's a good thing that you can turn the camera off on Zoom, because it was a sight to see behind the scenes. But that's the thing my son Gibson has taught me a lot about, just letting life happen. He's taught me to slow down in my day-to-day hecticness, that messy hands and shirts don't really have to ruin your day, and wearing play clothes, as he calls them, to school is actually acceptable. Turns out he was just what I needed to survive the unknown that came with a global pandemic. In 2025, we were blessed with a positive pregnancy test. I set my fears and worries aside, and I started dreaming of who this little person would be and how we were finally getting to add on to our family. We kept it very quiet in the beginning, and we just tried to keep it out of sight, out of mind. I woke up one day in the early weeks of pregnancy, and I decided that this miracle baby was going to bring me the ultimate surprise in life. And in that moment, I decided I wasn't going to find out the gender. Me, the person who has to know everything? Where'd this idea even come from? Would I be able to do it? I spent 9 months hearing the same comment over and over again. I cannot believe you're doing this. As if I was doing it to be selfish. But I did this to show myself that I don't always have to have the answer to everything in life. Because of this choice, I wasn't prepared for baby 2. I had 3 gender-neutral sleepers and a snowsuit to bring that bundle of joy home in. The nursery was painted in a shade of ivory, but it was far from ready to go. And this was a full 180 from what life looked like when I was expecting my son. Once his gender was revealed, Baby Blue had taken over the front room of our house, from ceiling to carpet, and his closet looked like something out of a department store. But did it matter? We live in this world that's so hung up on details and material things, and they take away from the big picture. Well, I did it. I waited until the day I delivered to find out who this new little person would be. Fun fact, I waited 9 months for this news, and my darling, sweet, loving, supportive husband couldn't do it again. He found out during our 20-week anatomy scan, and he had to know if we were having a son or daughter. He kept it a secret the rest of the pregnancy because he knew it was important to me. And that's proof he's always in my corner, and most of the time will get on board with my crazy ideas. I love you, Jay. You're my rock. So a few weeks ago, we welcomed that miracle baby. It all went according to plan. We went in at midnight for my induction. I was already dilated. Then we got moving on Pitocin. My mind continued to race the entire time, but my eye was on the prize. And just before lunchtime on January 15th, the nurse came in and said, "Are you ready to meet your baby?" More than ever. After hours of agonizing contractions, a million peanut ball positions, and several pep talks from my mom and my husband, baby Grinestaff number 2 was here. we decided my OBGYN should get the honors in telling me. The world went silent, and my doctor said, "Maggie, are you ready to meet your daughter?" Tears poured uncontrollably out of my eyes as I held her in my arms and I listened to her cry on my chest. The reality is, it really didn't matter what the doctor told me, but to hear the word daughter felt like a dream. See, I'm a total girly girl. I always have been. The pink, the clothes, a childhood of being front and center on a stage, dancing my heart out. I now get to share that mother-daughter bond with my daughter, Gracelyn May. I have no idea if she'll like the same things that I do, but I do know I will spend the rest of my life loving her unconditionally and raising her to be a strong, independent woman. Just like my Gibson, I'm sure Gracelyn will teach me so much more about life. Being their mother is my greatest blessing. It's funny, I find myself encouraging others to slow down more now. I remind people to snuggle their babies every chance they get, because the days are long, but the years, they really are so short. Go ahead, buy the shoes, and don't be afraid of the unknown, because it could turn out to be your biggest blessing. Even writing this story, I didn't know the ending till very recently. And that definitely made rehearsing for this a bit difficult. But I'm choosing to be okay with it. I'm still as nosy as ever, so don't think about keeping any secrets from me. I will find them out. It's my job, after all.
As a dancer, I find it thrilling to launch my body into space. It is a complex act in which I must monitor my weight at each moment, intuit the speed of my fall, and anticipate the recovery. All the while, I revel in the sheer joy of being off balance, off kilter, wild and free as the air hits my skin. Perching on the diagonal is a defiant act in a world that often asks us to remain completely and complacently vertical. I was playfully experimenting with the pull of gravity when I met my husband, so I attribute gravity for our spiritual collision. We fell head over heels in love from the very first moment. The phrase falling in love is often used to capture the intense, topsy-turvy kind of love that new lovers experience. But for us, it was literal, and there was a reason. I offered stability and was yearning for risk. He personified risk and was searching for stability. Both my husband and I embraced living on the edge, but for very different reasons. As a Jew, born in Berlin in 1932, uneven ground shaped my husband's worldview. Throughout life, he fluctuated between the terror and displacement he felt as a child while walking through broken glass and burning buildings during Kristallnacht, to a giddy sense of adventure he experienced as a child while escaping Berlin with his family, hidden beneath a pile of coal on the back of a truck. The family was hiding for their lives in an attic of a pension in Belgium when he, already a rascal, saw it as an opportunity to play pranks. When the guests set their shoes out at night, he snuck down from the attic and switched all the shoes. In the morning, he shook with laughter as people scrambled to find their shoes, while his parents shook with fear. In 1938, my husband and his parents were granted passage aboard a boat to the U.S., but his aunts and uncles and the rest of his family were unable to leave Belgium and were killed in the Holocaust. If you can't trust the earth, being off balance becomes your norm. I was raised in the Midwestern suburbs in a loving environment. At 5, I became a dutiful student of ballet. I loved the rituals, the pliés and the tendus, followed by the dégagés and the rond de jambes. And while my reverence for these rituals inspired discipline and rigor, it also knitted into my body rigidity and obedience. I worked daily to defy gravity and maintain verticality. And eventually, by following all the rules, I learned to balance bone over bone, looking as if I was still and calm. Ballet, a product of the 15th century royal courts, held a high value for verticality because it connected royalty to the gods. I enrolled as a ballet major at the University of Utah. It was the late 60s, and revolution was in the air. I was immersed in the feminist movement. So connecting to royalty and gods became somewhat counter to my spirit. One day, properly attired in pink tights and a black leotard, with my hair glued up into a respectable bun, I snuck into a modern dance class. And I was in awe of what I saw. Dancers dared to wear, in a dance class, tie-dyed, loose-fitting hip hugger pants, fringy t-shirts with "Make Love, Not War" boldly displayed on their braless chests. And the hair, oh my God, do you remember the hair? Long, straight, curly, fuzzy, snaggy, shaggy, ratty, matty. It looked as if it was caught in a wind tunnel, but it wasn't. This airborne hair was the result of some of the most stunning dancing I had ever seen. The dancers were sailing upward into the air, diving into the floor, and pitching themselves into the unknown, unabashedly, unafraid of where gravity would take them. And all this was in total harmony with the wild and raucous music played by some hunky hippie guys standing in the corner, wailing on the drums and a rock guitar. My heart began thumping wildly to the beat of the drums, and slowly my hands instinctively reached up and started tugging at the tight bun. And I threw a bobby pin defiantly onto the floor. And each one felt like a major victory. Everything changed that day. I quit ballet and I became a modern dancer. I was going to learn how to fly. I had found my aesthetic soul. I was not alone in this pursuit of being off balance. Modern dance had been rebelling against uprightedness since the early 1900s. Doris Humphrey, an early modern dancer, famously described a fall as an arc between two deaths. I always thought she meant between beginnings and endings as well. And so mining that arc seemed grandiose. In our early years, my husband and I were moving toward the middle of the arc, where crazy love could not stop life's struggles. For instance, after several bankruptcies, we realized when it came to finances, it was probably better to lean into my pragmatic nature. But what saved our marriage most was dancing together. He was an incurable romantic from a bygone era of opening doors and pulling out chairs for ladies. My feminist, bra-burning instincts softened as he twirled me onto the dance floor to Etta James, and I fell dramatically into his arms. He would dip me so low, my head would come dangerously close to the ground, and we would laugh at the glorious thrill of it all. Gratefully, my husband never allowed us to fall out of love. In time, I realized that stillness I had sought in verticality was just an illusion, because each millisecond in an upright balance requires 1,000 delicate shifts of weight. In reality, the body is always falling. Being on the edge rooted me in tenuousness. Tenuousness seemed important when married to a man 19 years older than me. Between the ages of 70 and 90, my husband turned his hobby of woodworking into a passionate reality by designing and building 2 gorgeous homes for us and filling them with stunning handmade furniture. At age 85, he would be obstinately perched on ladders, hammering away, singing love songs, completely unaware that his body was changing. And we were both changing. Our bodies were no longer as agile. Falling became something less romantic. Caution was once a value we both detested, a sure sign of looming death. We weren't ready for it. When he hit his 10th decade, his normally lithe body began to falter. Multiple issues caused his nervous system to relinquish its job to hold him upright. I collected wheelchairs and walkers, which he vehemently resisted. He would say, somewhat disgusting, "I will look old and frail if I use those things." Frustrated with the lack of interest in his own safety, I replied angrily, "You are old and frail." I've regretted that comment ever since, because I realized I was mad at him for everything I loved about him. He was never going to change his wild and free spirit just to stay alive. He began falling more regularly, and if I was near, I could catch him and he would gracefully slide down my leg to the floor. Ever the prankster, he would try to make me laugh by mimicking a fall, but I could see the dangerous trajectory coming and didn't find it funny. One day, he moved into a fall, reached for me and stammered, "Help me." But this time I was not close enough to catch him. I watched in horrific slow motion as he stumbled, careening towards a marble table. Panicked, short in breath, I saw and felt it all and realized that the love of my life and I were in the ending trajectory of Humphrey's arc. He finally succumbed to gravity and left this human world. For me, I have become painfully in awe of the earth's power to spin our bodies and souls not only into the air, but into the earth and into other dimensions. 2 years later, I feel the spirit of my love cheering me on as I defiantly climb trees. I want to, I have to, I need to be perched up in the air, closer to the birds, the stars, and my love. I imagine a playground in the sky where he can take passionate risks and free fall to his heart's desire. My love and I will forever meet somewhere between the earth and the sky.
I took a deep breath of autumn air, slightly musty from the ancient fourth-floor hallway of the business apartment in downtown Békéscsaba, Hungary. It was my turn to knock, give the introduction spiel, and invite whoever was on the other side of the door to donate to the canned food drive that my missionary companion and I were putting together for a local orphanage. I knocked. A moment later, the door opened, and I completely froze. After a few moments of looking like a deer in the headlights, my perplexed companion, Sister Bowen, kindly took charge. Ionapot kívánok, misszionáriok vagyunk az utolsó napok szentjének Jézus Krisztus egyházának. I think I lost track of what she was saying at that point because I was becoming increasingly aware of the sensations flooding my body, equal parts fascinating and horrifying. See, when you sign up as a missionary with this particular religion, you agree to follow a strict set of rules. This includes not dating or flirting or even giving a hug to a member of the opposite gender for the duration of that 1.5 year mission. It also includes embarking on a rest-of-your-life journey of wearing special religious undergarments as your closest layer, day and night, at all times, except during the very obvious activities when you might remove your undergarments. This is your symbolic protection against evil from without or within, your armor, if you will. And that was fine. I signed up. I was here for it. But when this door opened, on the other side was the most beautiful man this little romance-deprived missionary had beheld in months. My own reaction took me by such surprise that I could not form words. Once my companion took over and the initial panic subsided, a wave of tingles washed from my head down through my whole body. And then I noticed the hot, cinnamon spicy feeling, yes, that one, melting right into my scratchy special undergarments. And the panic returned. Because although I had experienced this spicy feeling before, to be honest, I didn't even fully understand what it was or why it was moving through my body like some unholy shadow. All I knew was that it felt amazing. But because I had attended all of my Sunday school lessons, I knew that I wasn't supposed to feel that kind of amazing. As a missionary or otherwise righteous lady, I felt so ashamed I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror. A practice I actually started as a young girl, the first time I remember feeling those tingles. I tried to shove my shadow down and make up for it by being extra good and extra worthy. After returning home from that mission, I moved to the next important task in my religious culture, the mom mission. I reconnected with a nice man from college. We got married and started a family. I honestly didn't know anything about physical intimacy at this point, as it was only discussed as the thing to avoid before marriage and some nebulous thing I needed after to have babies. Right before we got married, our church leader met with us and offered us one solid gem of advice directed to my soon-to-be husband, which was, and I quote, "Please don't expect her to wear lingerie or anything like that." I could feel the tingles returning, followed by an intense burning sensation in my face. Then questions in my mind and a familiar shame resurfacing. Needless to say, we absolutely did not discuss that comment after the meeting. In fact, we didn't bring it up till almost a year into our marriage. As you can imagine, that first year of intimacy was pretty rocky, but it was around this time that I actually found a little respite when I read a book called They Were Not Ashamed. It taught me some very helpful information, like about the good girl syndrome, and much more about how our bodies even work. Like how, biologically speaking, a man can typically be turned on with one button, like a radio, while a woman needs to be tuned like a full-on symphony orchestra. While it didn't justify the warm tingles outside of the small container I created for it, all this information did help my body relax enough to finally make a baby. In fact, I made 6. Commence full mode mom mission. But there was something else missing. I was still avoiding mirrors and a semi-conscious desire to better understand that spicy part of myself that I was pinching off. I didn't see it as body chemistry. I saw it as something lurking under the surface, trying to hurt me. All feelings of cinnamon spiciness were shoved back down, threatening throughout the years to erupt through bright red cheeks. Anytime I felt chemistry or connection, talking with a man who was attractive, or even just nice. The shame persisted, and I continued to chase wholeness through worthiness. Finally, the external stress of finances, health, family, and so much more was weighing heavily on me. And on another autumn evening, this time in 2021, I found myself alone, kids in bed, husband out of town for the week again. I felt completely lost, disconnected from life, emotionally disconnected from my husband, and even more importantly, I felt disconnected from myself. I began to plead to my higher power for some kind of answer. I gathered my courage and looked directly into my own tear-soaked eyes in the mirror. In that quiet moment, I had the most rebellious, cinnamon spicy bit of inspiration pop into my head. I was going to sleep without my special scratchy undergarments. I took them off and put on my softest t-shirt, and something amazing happened. I could feel the soft fabric against my skin, and that wave of tingles washed down my body, and I felt hot and cinnamon spicy down there and all over, and the guilt came and knocked on the door, and I said, "Not right now, I'm busy." I allowed myself to sleep without those undergarments that entire week, and eventually let them go altogether. As I began to stretch the muscle of letting myself feel that kind of amazing, I noticed the guilt and shame would come back, sometimes to say hello, sometimes to go to battle, completely unraveling my entire identity as I had known it. I realized that when I'm ready, I can choose to release the shame and keep the cinnamon spice, shaping it into whatever the situation called for. My strength was growing, but I felt that there was more I needed to learn to help me understand the shadow I was slowly becoming friends with. When I first heard the word tantra, I didn't know what it was yet, but it tickled something curious inside of me. Most people I talked to dismissed it as something purely erotic and profane, and their responses brought whispers of the shame that used to haunt me. But I decided to follow my tingles. Over the next 2 years, I attended workshops and webinars, and finally a week-long retreat in upstate New York. I discovered that Tantra, which translates to woven together, is the art of touching the sacred and weaving it into the profane, the mundane, infusing soul and beauty and meaning into every last molecule of life. I learned through these no-filter, trauma-informed trainings that bliss is not something I can or can't have based on my worthiness. It's the magic that is created as I strip away the armor and see the raw beauty in the imperfections. It's an electric current that runs through me and powers a meaningful, messy, joy-filled life as I embrace all parts of myself, especially the cinnamon spice. In 2024, I began my personal new mission. I started helping people who were feeling trapped by their own shadow move through this process, showing them how to face their light and dark, their yin and yang, their softness and strength. Because when we push down our shadow, it pops up in some other uncomfortable way. But looking it in the eye allows the authenticity, the magic, and the creativity to flow. And so now, when I talk to a nice man, or go out dancing and let my hips move, when I see a beautiful sunset or witness an act of kindness, or even when my plans go off the rails, when my child tells me they identify as a different gender, when my ego takes a hit and I grasp the lesson in a messy mistake, I look for what's underneath and I let it be what it is. I look for the cinnamon spice, whatever form that takes. and I allow those tingles to wash over me, letting myself rub right up against the richness of it, no armor, and feel the message that all parts of me are welcome, that I am whole, that my shadow is my superpower.
Without thinking, I screeched into the parking lot of Hobby Lobby, and I slammed my car into brake. I could feel the rage building deep inside, and I was terrified that it was going to burst out, risking my safety on the road. Before my car was fully stopped, I heard my own voice screaming louder than I had ever screamed. I was shaking, tears were falling. It was one big, ugly cry. I literally needed to sit in that car and just let it all out, mostly to gain composure before hitting the road and heading home to my boys. You see, 3 days prior to this, while my boys and I were at a pool party for Memorial Day celebration, the apartment building we lived in caught fire and we lost everything. How did I get here? This was not supposed to be my life. I'm a Midwest girl, born and raised in Peoria. The baby of 6, I grew up around lots of strong women. I never aspired to live the happily married with children type of life. I was open to marriage, but not kids. Never felt like I belonged in the Midwest. I wanted to be in the fashion world some way. A buyer for stores, stylist to the stars, but I had never been outside of Peoria. So at the age of 24, I picked up and I left, moved out of state to start my own life. When you're young and you're full of dreams, anything seems possible. So I settled into my new life, made some friends, and it was here that my life took on new meaning. I met the man that would make me a mom, became pregnant at 34. That's right, the woman that did not want kids, pregnant. I was shocked. I was devastated. But I was also happy for this thing that I didn't know I wanted. But I lost that child. That left me really sad, really confused. How did this thing that I didn't want hurt so bad? But you move on. The hurt doesn't last long. Never goes away, but it doesn't last long. So over the course of time, my partner and I became pregnant again. And at the age of 35, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Being a mother, it felt amazing. It felt like my purpose in life. I had this tiny little person to love and to love me unconditionally. Life with my son's father, however, wasn't great, and it had not been great for some time. So when my son was 2, I left their dad. It was a tough thing to do. I felt guilty for breaking up our family. Over the course of time that we were apart, we had conversations, his dad and I. My guilt and my fear were being used against me. I didn't want to be another statistic, as I was being manipulated into believing. So I gave him another chance. And soon after, I became pregnant again with our second child, another baby boy. Hours after his birth, we learned he had Down syndrome. I'd heard about Downs, but didn't know a whole lot about it. And so there I am in my hospital room, all alone. At this point, my son had been taken to a nearby hospital to be cared for. What's his life gonna be like? I had no idea. All I could think about in that moment was getting out of this hospital to go be with my baby. So when he was 3 days old, I got to go be with him, and I remember being wheeled into his NICU room. He was only 3 days old, but I swear he looked at me and smiled. By the time he was a week old, we were able to take him home. Now here I am, mom of a 4-year-old and a newborn with a disability I needed to know more about. Talk about overload. And it only continued because my now 8-week-old baby needed to have his heart repaired and underwent surgery. I remember that 4 hours and 34 minutes like it was yesterday. But what I don't remember is breathing. Obviously, I did. But when you're in a situation like that, you're just so consumed with worry and fear. I do remember getting up to pace the room, and I saw a painting on the wall of God guiding the surgeon's hand, and I broke down. But it was my fear dissipating, because in that moment, I knew that God was with my baby, and his surgery was a success. But now the scary part comes, and I have to take him home and care for him on my own. All this while still dealing with a not-so-great relationship with their dad, because though we'd welcomed this second child, he had not changed for the better. That's it, I thought. I can't do this any longer, feeling alone in this environment. So I gave him one last chance to make our family work. I needed to be closer to family, so we moved here to Champaign. Believe it or not, though, things did not get better. And after 1.5 years of being here, I left him for good. I took my kids and we moved into an apartment. I was so scared to raise 2 kids on my own, one special needs, me finding ways of working with him at home, him seeing several different specialists a year, and me trying to find time for my oldest so that he didn't feel left out. But I did it, and I found my groove, and we were doing great. So life had to test me again. And about 4 years ago, my oldest came out as trans. Wow. How did this happen? I was not expecting this. I did not see this coming. How do I navigate this? How do I explain this to my special needs child? Is this because I stayed with their dad too long, him witnessing our arguments and eventually succumbing to this treatment himself? But I couldn't play that blame game. With the help of family and friends, I knew the only thing I could do was to love her through this. My love for both my kids are unconditional. My youngest adapted quicker than I did, and he loves his sister no matter what. So now I have a daughter, and I love her and I admire her strength and her bravery. I have found that it really does take a village, and without my family, my credit union family, my friends, every one of these challenges would have been unbearable. But every challenge also taught me something, and I'm stronger than I thought. I'm a mother to a special needs child and a trans child, but those labels do not define them, and they do not define me. They are both amazing, and they will both graduate in May, one going to high school and one going to college. And you know what, y'all? I did that. Thank you. Some days I am completely overwhelmed, but every day I am so thankful and grateful that I get to awake and experience this unexpected life. Thank you.
I heard those words, go to the end of the counter and step in front of the camera. I was very confused. What was happening? The last time I lost my license, I came in, paid $6, showed my ID, and I was all forgiven. They printed me a new driver's license, and I was out the door. Now they wanted a picture. Why? Why now? I think I asked and was told something very informative like, "It's what we do now." She may have said more, but all I could hear was the voice in my head screaming, "No! Why now?" This is probably a good time to tell you about the pimple that was on my forehead. Let's just say it was one of those big perimenopause pimples, the kind that you can't pop because it's just too deep, the kind that moves in uninvited for a week or two, and after a couple days, it starts to have its own pulse. I was on day 4, so it was pretty big and red and just starting to get shiny. Why a picture now? At the age of 53, I did not want a huge red zit on my forehead to be the distinguishing feature on my new driver's license. Every other time, they printed a bright new shiny driver's license and I was out of there in 10 minutes. I turned and walked to the end of the counter, realizing the error of thinking I didn't need to touch up my hair before leaving the car. And I didn't need to put on any makeup for this simple little errand. I slowly walked towards the camera, considering I always have a choice. I could make a big fuss and go get my purse in the car. I could run screaming from this building and come back in 2 weeks. But that's too dramatic, even for me. I'd already paid my $6 and I didn't want to continue driving without a license. I kept walking. "It's just a pimple, Susan." I turned in front of the blue curtain. "It's fine. My natural beauty shines from my smile within. I will just make that bigger than the zit in this photo." Face the camera, less teeth. Okay then. It was done. Great. Now, not only do I have a huge zit, I have resting bitch face on my license. She said, "Have a seat and wait for your name to be called." I walked over and picked a chair. According to how the body works, I was accepting the reality that I was going through a really uncomfortable period of hormone transition, and it would be captured in living color and would be laminated so that I could carry it around with me for the next 3.5 years, showing it to strangers. Whenever I traveled, bought alcohol, drove too fast in my car, not in that order. You know, whenever I had to prove that I am Susan Northrup, an adult. I sat in the uncomfortable chair watching the large clock on the wall tick the seconds away, wondering, how bad could it be? Just in case it was that bad, I began practicing in my head ways I could explain away how different I looked in real life. I could make the offensive play. It avoids any discussion and that whole confused up-down looking thing. Yes, that woman with the zit is me. I'm actually a very nice person. I heard some names. Robertson, Yang, Fisher. I could try the victim approach and demand sympathy. Bonus, if it's an older woman, I could invite her to a perimenopause pity party. Blank in menopause, the brain fog is so bad, right? I lost my license, my hormones were going crazy, I got a huge zit, and then they wanted a new photo. It was awful. More names floated over the air. Lewandowski, Malamba, Bennett. Nope, not yet. What about the tried and true humor misdirect, making myself the entertainment? Hi, I'm Susan, and this here was my forehead zit, Suzanne. Isn't Suzanne beautiful? We spent a wonderful 10 days together. It was magical. It was not lost on me that all these responses that I'd created were to deal with a situation that had not happened yet. It's classic Susan. I'd spent decades battling perfectionism and crippling codependence. Is that okay with you? Let's just say I'd been through more than a little trauma as a child and a young woman, which led to that perfectionism and codependency. Trauma that taught me the fictions that I was not enough and that my needs didn't matter. And this moment, as absurd as it might have been, was just a trigger, reminding me of all the times I thought I was not enough. That was and is no longer me. The only real fact in that situation was I had a zit on photo day. The lady was back at the counter with a stack of papers and said my name. Yes, I can finally get out of here and see how bad it really is. I walked up, got my paper, took a look. Yeesh. There was Suzanne in blurry black ink on patterned blue paper. I could see her already. It would be 7 to 10 business days until the full-color laminated license would arrive in the mail, and I could see how bad it really was. I walked out of the door and pushed myself out into the evening breeze. It's just a pimple, Susan. It's your body's way of attacking something not playing nice with other cells, or maybe my hormones swinging around again. I continued into the parking lot to go home. How much more time was I going to spend worrying about or trying to explain away a pimple? None. Pimples happen. Zit happens. I looked around the parking lot. Why was I even worried about being judged at all? I know I'm enough, maybe more than. Current real problem, where is my car? Come on, Suzanne, just a little bit farther. As I reflected on my day's struggle, I realized I needed to tap into everything I learned during my recovery and my training to become a transformational life coach. I reminded myself, what other people think about me is rarely even about me. It's about their life filters. It's definitely not under my control. And it's not my business unless they tell me in words out loud to my face. And most of all, what other people think about me is a complete waste of my time and energy. Thank you. How would I hope a client would have handled something like this? All right, Susan, what are you really gonna do? I chose. The next time I took out my license, I'd hand it over and say, nothing. I settled into my seat, turned on the light, flipped down the mirror, and gave myself a gentle smile right in the eyes. And in that moment, I reached utter and complete acceptance and love for myself, even my new friend Suzanne. And I've had the opportunity to remember that moment over the last 2 years, every time I took out my license, because it's right there in living color, laminated.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for some more amazing stories by some truly incredible women. But first, welcome back to the stage, Miss Jenette Jurczyk.
Thank you so much. You guys having fun so far? Those are some pretty awesome ladies, I'll tell you that. One of my favorite things about That's What She Said since it began in 2013 is that we partner with local nonprofits and we donate a percentage of the proceeds from the ticket sales to nonprofits. To date, I think we've donated over $150,000. Yeah, thank you. Across, well, we're in, more than a dozen cities now, so it's been growing and growing. But tonight, just by being here and purchasing a ticket, you are part of this mission to give back to our community. So for the second year in a row, we are partnering with Parkland Foundation and the Women of Impact Scholarship Fund, which are doing incredible work. And here to tell us a little bit about the program is Lesa Brandt from the Parkland Foundation. And if she looks familiar, it's because she told her story right here on the stage 1 year ago.
Well, thank you, Jenette, and thanks for being here tonight. My name is Lesa Brandt. I'm with the Parkland College Foundation, and I'm so happy to be here to tell you a little bit about the Women of Impact. The Women of Impact started as a little dream where we wanted to bring women together to do something bigger. We wanted to bring together 200 women, each with $100 in their pocket, to then vote on scholarship recipients and then give away that $100 in a lump sum to these students. And for the past few years, we've been able to do just that with the generosity of partners like She Said, and women in this room, and women in our community, and men too. But I want to invite you to join us this year, June 23rd, right here at Parkland. Bring your $100, bring your girlfriends. We'll have wine, snacks, and a great time. We'll vote on those scholarship recipients and really just create a ripple effect of good in this community.
You guys should come out. It's a beautiful, beautiful event. So we made a commitment last year to fund at least one full scholarship for a student here at Parkland. And we made a donation of over $2,000. And so we've got a donation to make to the Parkland Foundation Women of Impact program. And I'm going to bring out our very own Vanna White, Ms. Carrie Rosso, one of the original founders of That's What She Said. Hey, Carrie, that is huge.
That's what she said.
And so we got an amazing offer from our after party sponsor, Heartland Coca-Cola, who said, if you do this one more time and donate to the scholarship fund, we are going to match it. So we are not donating $2,000. We are donating $4,000. Thank you to Stephanie Say and Heartland Coca-Cola. Yay! Talk about making an impact. Thank you guys so much. This is so awesome. We have loved working with Parkland. They have been absolutely welcoming and fantastic. We're also making a donation to another nonprofit because we do like to rotate through and spread the wealth. And so we'll be making a donation to the Family Room, a small but mighty nonprofit organization that brings comfort and joy to children and families in the foster care system right here in Champaign County. And you helped make that happen. So as your host and the director of the show, it is my absolute honor to thank the people and the businesses and the organizations that made tonight possible, because we could not do this without them. So I need to start with our amazing presenting sponsors, Sterling Wealth Management. Sharon Allen is just a huge champion for women, and we thank them so much for coming back year after year to make That's What She Said possible. So thank you so much, Sterling Wealth Management. And we're so happy to welcome back a few of our amazing gold sponsors and even welcome some new ones. We need to give a shout out to Carpet Weavers for decorating this beautiful stage for our ladies. Yes. Thank you to Lesa Rector and the team at Rector Real Estate. Woohoo. Thank you to our friends at Spiros Law. Yes. Thank you to Jordan McDaniel at Country Financial. Thank you to our friends at CIBM Bank and to our printing partners at Up Close Printing. And then Heartland Coca-Cola, who have sponsored our after party. So you are all invited after the final bow tonight. All you have to do is go out to the lobby and turn right, and you are welcome to join us. There is a small theater right next door. The music will be pumping, the drinks will be flowing, the food. It's all free and it's all yours. Come celebrate with us, okay? And thank you so much, Heartland Coca-Cola. And the list goes on and on. It takes so many moving parts to put all of this together. And so take a look through your programs. All of these are businesses who said yes to That's What She Said, to raising women's voices, to making this all possible. So get to know these businesses and give them your business. And let's give a huge shout out to all of our sponsors. A special honorary shout out to our tissue sponsor, McGill Counseling. Everyone get their tissues tonight? Has anyone used your tissues tonight? Yeah, so grateful that we have those. All right, so you may have noticed there is one member of the She Said cast that has yet to be introduced, and that's because she is on the stage with me right now, repeating every word that I say in American Sign Language. So please give a shout out. This is Rose Panepinto, you guys. We are so thrilled to welcome her back. It's a huge part of our mission to make our events as inclusive and accessible as possible, and we couldn't do that without Rose. Yay! Just a few more pieces of business before we get the show on, because I know you're tired of hearing me talk. But in case you haven't heard, we have a teen empowerment program called That's What Teens Say, where teens I think we've mentored over 300 teens to date in Champaign-Urbana alone, and now this program runs in 5 different communities where we welcome teens to join us for a 3-day program where they get confidence coaching and public speaking mentorship, and they get to tell a story live on stage. And so if you know a teen girl or you have a teen girl and she needs some empowerment, there's a program coming up the end of March, and we would love for you to nominate a teen that you know and love. So join us at That's What Teens Say. And shout out to the Raw Counseling Group, who's our executive producer or sponsor for that program for like the 4th year in a row. They've really made it a huge impact on that program. Yay. And last but not least, you guys know we have a podcast? Yeah. We've had the She Said Project podcast for a number of years where we welcome back women who have shared their story on the stage, and we talk about the story behind the story and get to know them a little better. Well, in 2025, we relaunched the podcast in a new format with our new partners at WCIA. And now it's a weekly podcast, and not only can you hear us talk, but you can watch us talk, because you can now stream the She Said Project podcast on the WCIA 3+ streaming app. Every Friday, there's a new episode. So if you need a little bit more Carrie Rosso and a little bit more Jenette Jurczyk in your life, join us on the podcast. All right. It is time to get the show on the road, my friends. Who wants some more stories? This is our grand finale. They've been working so hard, and let's finish strong. Please welcome back to the stage your 2026 That's What She Said speakers.
So there I am, sitting alone in my doctor's office. Any moment, she's gonna come in, go over all my test results. My nerves are on fire, and I feel like I'm going to vomit. I am chugging a CBD drink, thinking it will take the edge off. I feel my nails digging into my skin as I nervously scratch itches that were never even there. A few days prior, I had checked into the ER with the fear that I was having a full-blown heart attack. I have had my fair share of panic attacks, and this was not that. I had every symptom Google could come up with: sweating, shaking, chest pain, nausea. I had a rash from head to toe, and I just could not catch my breath. They sent me in for an EKG. It was followed by an MRI. They told me to follow up with a primary, and they sent me home. I was completely shocked and that they did not admit me right then and there. Surely I was not fine. They must be faking my results so I don't break down until I see my doctor. So she waltzes into the office. I see the smile on her face, and I start to panic. Clearly she's putting on her brave, smiling face, knowing that she has to deliver the terrible news. My brain went eerily quiet, making space for the worst news possible. I was fully prepared to hear that my last days were upon me. Then she breaks the news to me that I am very healthy. All my test results are normal and everything was looking good. I couldn't believe it. I had never felt anything like I did that day in the hospital. Could it just be stress? My doctor reinforced what they told me in the ER. I have a basically healthy lifestyle for a woman my age, and my numbers all looked good. Every one of my symptoms were physical manifestations of my mental stress. I had been doing mental gymnastics and had been for years, and had been seeing a therapist. This must be the point in my therapy where my body was ready to release some of that childhood trauma I must have buried deep down, and it was finally surfacing. There could be no other explanation. Or could there be? If I was being honest with myself, for the past 10 years, My unhealthy relationship was the common denominator to everything that was going wrong in my life. It was time to admit to myself that my marriage was over. And it was time for me to go tits up, get out. For over a decade, I stayed because I had made a vow and I intended to honor it. And the marriage was full of pitfalls from the beginning: infidelity, abuse, manipulation. And I silently took it all because that's what a good wife should do. And little by little, I lost the Ashlee that I once knew. She was funny and charming. She was charismatic and passionate. She was always present in the moment and taking care of her friends and family with love. At this moment in time, I was a completely different person. I was anxious all of the time. I was constantly afraid of losing control. When I started having more than 5 or 6 panic attacks a day, yeah, you heard me, 5 or 6 per day, I started consuming CBD drinks to calm my nerves. Friends started pointing out that I was visibly shaking all of the time. When they started trying to intervene, I pushed them away. The more I tried to pour into this relationship and fix what was broken, the more isolated I felt. My body was finally telling me that I couldn't take it anymore. 2025 was the year. I was done. It was time to listen to my body and trust myself again. I filed for divorce. I made sure it was not an option to ever go back. I did go on an apology tour to make amends with friends I had lost. I connected with my cousins even more. I started treating my mind and body with respect. I allowed myself to meet and enjoy new people, and I just started letting go of what could go wrong, and instead accepted what could go right. I was finally on track and taking control back. I was almost halfway through the year of my recovery when tragedy struck. It was unusual that my brother, Donnie, who I saw almost every day, had not responded to my calls or texts for a few days. My gut knew that something was off. One evening, our other brother called to tell me that Donnie had a stroke and he was not doing well. I was able to visit him once. Due to his poor state, he opened his eyes that day, and he even managed to smirk. Or that's what I'll always believe. Not too long after, Donnie passed. It was heartbreaking, and it still is. I was still processing my pending divorce. I had to sell our house, and I was already dealing with a ton of stress. How much more could I take? Well, since you asked, my sweet little baby dog, Larry, had to go and die. What in the cold fudge? Now, these tests could have easily broke me, but the amount of love, support, and encouragement from loved ones showing up really put things into perspective. So I went to the visitation, I went to the funeral, I sat with so many people who loved my brother, and we all shared a special weekend together. At his funeral, in the procession line, as I sat alone in my car, watching all of the cars in line from small town to small town, one of my people kept me entertained via text. She kept my head up, kept me smiling. She kept hope that there was so much more worth living for. Now, I could have zoned off and been really sad, but instead I stayed present and really sad, but hopeful. And I realized that I had to keep moving ahead. I could not go backwards. It's all figure-outable. Such a sad day, but such a beautiful day. I decided to lean into the beauty and embrace this life that I have and do whatever would come, no matter how scary. Do it scared, do it anyway. I fought too hard to get myself back. From then on, I've been thriving, back in healthy routine for my mind and body. I've met beautiful people. I lost a couple of wild cards, but that's a part of life. And it's not really a loss when you realize that they were there for a reason when we needed them, one another the most. Now, when I look back on that decade of my life, I'm sure people who met me during that time would describe me as an anxious person. What's funny is that I finally realized I am not an anxious person by nature. It was just truly the constant stress. And once I was able to let go of that, I found the charming and charismatic Ashlee once again. And I am never letting go of her. Now I have found happiness, love, and excitement all within myself because of the choices I have made. Now, in the words of Brandi Carlisle, who I will be seeing live in 2 weeks, returning to myself is just returning me to you. And that's the only thing I want to do.
My truth is, I was conditioned to be good and strong. I wasn't conditioned to have boundaries or a financial plan or even a healthy lifestyle. I was conditioned to be the girl who created villages and took care of others because my mother was taught that way, and her mother, because having feelings and being Black and a woman is rarely a safe place to be. But when the year turned 2020, everything I had been conditioned to be meant absolutely nothing. Because how can you be good and strong when everything is falling apart? Now, for those of you who have read the Bible, most of you are familiar with the book of Job. Now, Sky Daddy, or God, or whatever you would like to call them, must have thought my name was Job, because within 6 months, my entire life had changed. Wild. It started on January 3rd when a good friend of mine, Rodney Butler Jr., passed away. Now, Rodney wasn't just one of my closest male friends. He was the boy who danced with me at Edison Middle School's 8th grade dance to Monica's For You I Will. Now, we remained friends for his entire life through all of our big and small moments. His death made me reevaluate. Who was I, and how was I showing up for people right now? So I wanted to show up for my friends and love them right now. I drove down to Champaign and I said, I'm gonna go check out what everybody's doing. So on February 22nd, I called my girlfriend Tanisha to hang out. Now, she had the audacity to say that she was busy. And, me, busy doing what? And she says, well, I just finished my esthetician's license and I'm booking facials. So I booked a facial. I got off the train, got home, put my stuff down, and went straight to her house. The minute I got out the car, I screamed, bitch! And she was like, my bitch! It was as if we had teleported back to 1996 when I lived at Fox Ridge on Pomona Drive, and we were hanging out with her cousin Denise, and we laughed like little girls. I asked her if we could do my facial on live on Facebook. I wanted to let the world watch her do what she loved to do, which was loving the people that loved her. She blessed my body with her hands, the massage to my face and shoulders, the scrubbing of my lips, and the steam that created an amazing moisture on my face. She essentially washed my face so good, I don't think it was ever that clean. Ever. We talked, we laughed, and we told stories to each other and to the world. I got to hear her laugh and totally be engulfed in her passion. On Sunday, February 23rd, 24 hours after our amazing moment, Tanisha had been murdered. I felt the shock pulse through my body and tried to understand what I just had heard. She was gone. And before I even had time to process it, process her departure, process her loss, process my breath, COVID, the world shut down. And when I say shut down, I mean my job was scrambling. You know, the job that said that you could never work from home. Well, within 4 days, they managed to get 400 employees packed up, ready to go work from home. Now, I would love to stop here and say that working from home was great, but as many of you know, we were all playing the game of how to not fall apart. We were helping a future kindergartner, we were juggling loss, and we were eating every hour on the hour because our fridge. And just as I was trying to figure all of those things out, on the 28th day of Life into the World shutdown, my father passed away. An hour after I had talked to him, he was gone. Now, this was the man that taught me all the things about my life. This was the man that sacrificed his life to guarantee mine would flourish. The man that taught me how to swim, read a bike, and even type blindfolded. The man that wouldn't allow me to talk to boys, made me work hard to get scholarships. The man that called me a week after my birthday to wish me a happy birthday. So like right now. And the man who decided to travel to Malawi when I had decided to live in a country that was mine, but truly was his. Spending a week with my father as a child of 6 was the best gift he could have ever given to me. The man who prayed for me, loved me through his actions, and held secrets that kept our name strong. This man that had protected me my entire life, that had breathed life into me every time I was lost. When I would leave his house with a dream and had shame in coming home, I was that boomerang child. And he would say, Jackie, you can always come home. The man who loved me completely, the Dr. Ezekiel Kalipeni, was gone. Now, there have been losses, and there have been heartbreaks, and there has been grief. But it was nothing like losing my father. Knowing that I am not the first person who has lost a parent, I was shocked that I had never even heard anyone talk about it. It was more than the fact that I couldn't breathe. My entire world completely stopped, and I was asked to continue going. It was that I was shattering. My heart had broken. Sky Daddy knew I was one opportunity away from hanging out with the other guy. You know, the red one. Now, I do have to be grateful that at least I was able to be physically present to bury my father, even if it meant that I was going to be stuck in Africa for 2 months. As much as I would like to tell you that returning to America was amazing and things had turned around, it did not. Because on my 3rd day back at work, we had an emergency meeting and 140 employees were let go, including me. It wasn't long after that that my partner, who I would have told you was the love of my life, delusions, the man I was going to marry, had informed me that he had been cheating the whole time I was in Africa, burying my father. Now, let's all catch our breaths, wipe our tears, and hear how I didn't just say, to hell with it. Because I was conditioned to be good, not conditioned to have boundaries, or be healthy, or even be financially astute. I was conditioned to be strong. But regardless of all that conditioning, there is nothing that can prepare you for that kind of loss. I couldn't hold it together anymore. I could no longer be everyone's strong Black woman. And because I no longer could, I didn't. I allowed myself to shatter in a million pieces. And I cried. I cried in bed, in the shower, in the car, at the grocery store, with my friends, and probably with my enemies as well. I asked Sky Daddy to take my tears as prayers. I asked the universe to help me find the warmth in my heart again. I no longer wanted to be a burden with my grief. Because I was conditioned to be good and strong. I was the girl who carried the pain for others. I was the girl that created the villages. I was the strong one. But it took 32 months, my baby sister's wedding, a depleted bank account, and sometimes some green magic that some of you know as Mary Jane, to find the warmth back in my heart. It took phone calls from people I once held, visits to the desert, someone purchasing a ticket to anywhere, because I was definitely with flights and feelings, and a once-in-a-lifetime experience falling in love with the actual man of my dreams, the man that I prayed for and was given to me only by God. He is the man who has forever changed my life, a man that Tanisha would say, he's a good man, Savannah, and a man that my daddy would be proud of. I survived. I didn't say to hell with it, because even when I thought God had forgotten all about me, when I thought that I was not enough, there were people that showed up and showed out, and they loved me through my pain. The girl that was conditioned to be good and to be strong no longer had to be. I could finally give in to the grief, the torrent of emotions, the truth, my truth. I could learn to accept help from those in my village and to offer grace to myself. So for those of you who have been there or are currently there and are still trying to figure out how to breathe and how to find the warmth back into your heart, lean into that village that you once carried and let them carry you. And for the one who has carried me my whole life, Amayanga, Zikomo.
Well, spoiler, I'm not pregnant. Somebody better call the National Enquirer if that was the case. All right, just real quick before we get going, if you got along with your mom perfectly and parenting teenagers was the joy of your life, then this part of the show probably isn't for you. But if that wasn't the case, come along on this ride with me. Do you all remember the book? The required reading for young mothers called What to Expect When You're Expecting. Maybe you remember the cover, an artistic rendering. Oh yeah, here we go. A young mother sitting in a muumuu in a rocking chair, reading that book, looking largely unbothered by how her life was about to change in perpetuity. That means forever, y'all. The book was authored by 3 women, and I'd like to have a word with them. I am sure they are perfectly lovely ladies, but I'd still like to have several words. They also gave us other hits like What to Expect the First Year, the Second Year, and the Toddler Years. And that was it. That's all they wrote. As if we didn't need coaching after those precious toddler years. Now, there was no guarantee I was ever going to become a mom anyway. I literally failed home ec. No, really, true story. The pillow I was supposed to sew in high school, sew into a precious rabbit, turned out to look more like a deformed woodchuck. It still haunts my dreams. I was voted least likely to get married and have kids. It was, it's okay. It was actually, it turns out okay. It was actually announced at an awards night in high school. My mother was not amused. So it was a bit of a surprise when I birthed 4 kiddos, 2 girls and 2 boys. I was not one who oozed maternal vibes at all. My ex-mother-in-law bought me this book as a gift, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I remember reading the book and wondering, why should I care about my mucus plug or whatever? It all seemed so graphic. And I figured that my body would just know what to do when the time came. And when it came to raising babies, it really wasn't that hard for me. Babies and toddlers were my jam. We got along great. I knew how to get them to sleep. I didn't stress over feedings. And I knew how to manage their care so they didn't just stay alive, but they thrived. I was seeing the world through the eyes of my babies, and everything seemed so fresh and fun. And I really did enjoy that precious time. If this wasn't your experience, don't hate me, because this magical era was very short-lived. I am sure you are all familiar with that curse that is cast on you by your mother. Oh yeah, the one that says, I hope you have a daughter, say it with me, and I hope she is exactly like you. Well, I was terrible to my mother from the ages of about 16 to 25. I knew it all, and obviously she knew nothing about my life. I remember coming home from school my senior year, and my mom confronted me with a pack of cigarettes she had found in my bedroom. And I decided that the best course of action was to start yelling at her. Why are you going through my room? Why are you snooping? How dare you? I stayed out late. I never called, did all the typical rebel teen crap, dated who I wanted, never listened to her opinion. I was the baby girl after all. I expected her to do my laundry and cook, and never did I have to do anything to help her. I was an angry teenager. My parents had divorced when I was 10, and I blamed my mom for everything. Instead of seeing her as being protective and trying to prevent me from making some of the same mistakes she made, I just saw her as crazy and controlling, and she didn't want me to have any fun. I vividly remember saying to my mom, when I have kids, I will never be like you. I don't think my mother ever laughed so hard. I think she said something along the lines of, oh, little girl. And that's what my mom would say when she was real pissed with me. I can't wait to see how your kids treat you. And the curse was cast. Because I did have 2 daughters, and guess what? They were exactly like me. Where's the book about what to expect when you have teenagers? Nothing prepares you for the teenage years, both girls and boys. 1 minute they are sitting on your lap, wanting to read Goodnight Moon for the 4,365th time. And the next, they have lives that don't involve you at all, except for laundry, food, transportation, and financial assistance. Mornings go from being up by 6 a.m. to watch multiple episodes of Little Einsteins to teenagers hiding in their bedrooms like they're part of the witness protection program. You may not see them before 1 p.m. or after. Remember when you were exhausted and thought, I cannot wait until they are old enough to make themselves a sandwich. And when they got old enough to make their own sandwich, we felt like our lives were over because they didn't need us in the same way anymore, except for the pile of dishes they left for you in the sink. There is literally nothing that prepares you for parenting older children. Nothing. And there is no book about how to manage these new teenage problems. One day, you are helping your toddler pick out a sensible outfit, and the next, you're yelling at your teen to just wear a freaking coat already. It's 22 degrees outside. Thank you. Then there was dealing with a teenager sexting on their cell phone. That was a fun Thanksgiving. True story, swear to God. Let's just say that after the 4th or 5th time my child excused themselves from the dinner table to hide in the bathroom, the evening devolved into their father and I chasing him around the house to confiscate the phone. As they age, we revel in their growing independence. The problems become less frequent, but when they hit much harder and are much more complex. Especially when they insist, Mom, you don't know what it's like. You couldn't possibly understand. Or break out in a sudden fit of rage when I ever so lightly touch their bag to reach past them to get into the refrigerator. And yes, I got to watch my adult children make all the same bad choices I did. Did they learn nothing from me? As their mother, I knew that the person they were dating was wrong for them. I knew how this movie was going to end, and I wanted to warn them. But they didn't want to hear lectures about what they should do or who to do it with. I vividly remember trying to talk to my daughter about the boy she was dating, and in that moment, I heard my mother's voice coming out of my mouth, clear as a bell. And I was like, whoa. That was the moment it hit me. The curse had come full circle. And I finally saw my mom for what she was going through at that time. During my early teens, my parents divorced, and my mom cared for her own mother during her last months before she died. And she was now single, raising me. And all of the wise words she spoke came back to me in an instant. And I knew what I had to do. It was time to call my mom and apologize. Because my first marriage had imploded, and it finally had occurred to me that, guess what? I didn't know everything, and that I was really sorry. And she accepted that apology and was so gracious. She even laughed. Because I think she had been sitting back and watching the curse play out. She grinned like the Cheshire Cat, knowing full well that I was getting a taste of my own medicine. And I now understood my mother was a human being doing the best she could with what she had. I understood that rebuilding your life at 50 was not easy, especially after everything that she had lost. But she showed me how to carry on in the face of personal devastation. And now here I am at the newly minted age of 51, and I have a full understanding of everything I put my mother through. But on the flip side of this, I realized that these young adults I have raised need the same amount of unconditional love and support, just like a newborn. And we don't get as much say in our adult children's lives anymore. There's been a shift in the parent-child dynamic, and TikTok shows us that more and more children are breaking up with their parents instead of putting up with toxic relationships. But the thing that I had to remember about entering this phase of parenting is that you're not actually parenting anymore. You're more like the bumpers in the bowling alley. You are just trying to keep that ball from going in the gutter. And honestly, you're more of a guidance counselor. A guidance counselor with stretch marks, not enough sleep, not enough caffeine, and sometimes very underappreciated. But a guidance counselor, nonetheless, with a very important job to do. Thank you.
I recently found this old letter I wrote when I was 17 years old for a college scholarship. Reading it took me right back to my youth, my innocence, and that big, fearless ambition I forgot I had. In that letter, I wrote that I wanted to own a business, serve my community, and make a difference in people's lives. 17-year-old me knew she was destined for something and truly believed she could do anything. I thought I had it all figured out. I grew up in a 2-parent household, going to church every Sunday. Pretty normal childhood. I was the oldest of 3, so I was like the built-in babysitter, counselor, and family fixer. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I was super excited to move away and prove that I could make it on my own. Back then, I thought life would unfold just like that letter, step by step, success by success. But when I read it now, I smile because life said, "That's cute, Shauna. Now let me show you how this is really gonna go." What came next wasn't polished or predictable. It was messy, complicated. It was real. And honestly, at times, sometimes life looked more like Jerry meets Springer than a scholarship essay. At 22, I came back home, same streets, same people, not really a different me, just a more educated one, I suppose. I had survived college, but my dreams have fallen flat. There was no big career waiting. No one was there to ask me what I wanted in life or to help me figure it out. So I did what some people do when they're lost. They take what's easy or what's familiar. And for me, that was work. I found fun jobs, decent money, flexible hours, independence, but I was drifting. And when you don't know who you are or where you're going, life will introduce you to some folks who think they can show you. Now, I understand that God will allow you choices, and sometimes those choices are the very lessons that lead you back to His plan. There were some hard lessons I endured. Let's just say I wasn't exactly hanging around the church crowd back then. I like to say I was doing community outreach, before I even knew what that meant. Building relationships, meeting people where they were. Unfortunately, where they were wasn't always where I should have been. I found myself running with people who weren't necessarily bad. Well, I can't lie, they were bad. And definitely headed in directions I had no business following. Street guys, fast lifestyles, nights that turned into mornings. But even in that chaos, God's hand was on me. He protected me from things I didn't even see coming. I dodged a bullet, possibly, literally. Some of the situations I put myself in, God, they still make me cringe when I think about how easily things could have gone left. And thank God there was no social media back then because, whoo, goodness. I might not be standing here today telling the story the same way. Then one day I get a call from a family church friend. She said, Shauna, there's a new position opening at the university in communications, business, finance, training. And we need someone to do this and that and this and that. Now, I did study communications, but when I picked that major, I thought I'd be working for Ricky Martin or Mariah Carey or, potentially writing speeches at the White House for Bill Clinton. Ugh, we'll talk about that later. So when she started describing policies, budgets, system training, I thought, what kind of communications is this? It sounded like another world. But I sent in my unproofread resume anyway, typos and all, and somehow I got the job. That call was my lifeline, my way out. Looking back, that wasn't coincidence. That was God's timing. But even after that door opened, I still was living what I felt like a double life. By day, I was working in the office, writing policies, sending business communications. I'd leave a meeting in heels and a blazer, and a few hours later, I'd be in places where I didn't belong, with guys who didn't value me or my future. I was trying to prove something to myself, to others, that I could balance both worlds, that I was worthy. But all I was really doing was breaking myself in half. And then I got pregnant. The Maury Povich show could have been my destiny. Whew. Shauna, you are the mother, but the father, ... Yeah. Can laugh now and say that with humor, but back then it was heavy. I'd chosen the wrong man before, but this time it was different. I wanted this baby. I wanted her to have a father. The truth is, most of my life, I had been searching for some kind of validation, someone, something to make me feel like I was enough. But it didn't work out with him. What I got instead was grace, because that baby, my miracle baby, saved me. For the first time, I wasn't just living for survival or approval. I was living for purpose. And I knew then God was rebuilding me through her. A couple years later, I was driving with my daughter. She was about 4 years old at the time. And Nicki Minaj's Bees in the Trap. Na 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 na. Yeah. It's trending now, I think. Again, so. Yeah, it came on the radio, and when that beat dropped, listen, I'm feeling it, right? I'm rapping every word, well, almost every word. And she's in the back seat singing along. She's smiling, laughing, hitting every, yeah, bees in the trap, bees in the trap, like it's her favorite song. It was adorable until I really listened to the lyrics, and I'm like, it was a little too much for my precious baby, miracle baby, to be listening to. So I turned it off. And from that day forward, I never really played inappropriate music around her again. Even as she got older, when Bruno Mars came out with that song, that's what I like, that's what I like. And he crooned that line, sex by the fire at night. I'd either start singing extra loud with the wrong words or just casually start talking like, so, what do you want to eat when we get home, baby? That day in the car with Nikki was a turning point, a little reminder that my daughter was always watching, always listening, and I needed to show her something better. I cleaned up my act quite a bit. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't a saint or an angel by any means, but I knew we were destined for greatness. I had the best baby ever, and I wanted to give her so much more than just love. I wanted to give her experiences, opportunities, a quality life. I wanted to show her how to live her dreams, to be open-minded, and to see the world beyond what's right in front of her. So I started thinking about how to level up as a single mother to this exceptional little girl. And that's when I decided to prepare for something bigger. I went back to school and got my MBA. Yep. Walking into that first classroom, I was surrounded by professionals, business owners, executives, people who seemed to belong. And I thought, what am I doing here? But as I listened, I realized how small my world had been. That room changed me. I learned that I could talk to anyone, learn from anyone, and solve problems with anyone. And that's where I started finding my why. And I knew that every step, even the messy ones, had been ordered for a reason. After earning my MBA, I started real community outreach. Yes. Know what that is now? Some of that work included advocating, developing small businesses, helping them find funding, make connections, and get wins. It was truly inspiring. I realized if I can win for them, I could keep winning for me. During COVID, I started my own outdoor group fitness business. I dabbled in network marketing. I built relationships, encouraged people, and I loved helping others. Eventually, that path led me somewhere I never really expected. After my dream of being a speechwriter for President Clinton didn't pan out, blessing in disguise, I found myself landing in politics unexpectedly. I found my voice, I found my competitive spirit, and I found my purpose. It wasn't the White House, but it was a chance to serve, to take a risk, create change, make the impossible possible. And not just for me, but for my daughter, and for every woman or person who's ever felt like their story disqualified them from greatness. And when I was running for city council last year, and life was a little challenging, my daughter asked me, "Mom, why do you want to run? Why do you spend so much time doing all this?" And I told her, because the world is not set up for you. You have to go out and change it. And when I was reading that old letter that day, I was surprised, I was humbled, I was emotional. Because the Shauna who wrote it, that 17-year-old dreamer, was already becoming the woman standing here today. Faith and destiny had been guiding her all along, even when she couldn't see the path, even when life tried to convince her she wasn't enough. She kept going, she kept believing, and she became the woman in the letter. All right, thank you guys. That's the end of our show, but I just want to give a great thank you, and I appreciate you guys coming out. This show has been amazing. These women are amazing. We're like family now. Hopefully you got a glimpse of our lives and know a little bit more about our families and who we are, and we want to share more about who our family is. So please